This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College, offering comprehensive support for students with learning disabilities, ADHD, and ASD. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, we teach differently. Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. Back with me today is one of my favorites, the wonderful Jessica McCabe from How to ADHD. Everyone loves her, including me. Today we're bringing you a special episode sponsored by Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, the college of choice for students who learn differently. So we've just started another school year, and as you know, college can be especially challenging for those of us with ADHD. I can't believe that it's almost 50 years ago that I graduated. So would you please lead us in talking about why college can be so daunting for us ADD, ADHD students?
Yeah, society doesn't always take ADHD super seriously, but it does put us at a lot of risk when it comes to college. That transition can be really difficult. So ADHD students are less likely to attend college and we're less likely to graduate. So there's a lot of reasons why it can be daunting. One is we don't grow out of ADHD, although we might be expected to. We're dealing with the same struggles we did in high school or earlier. We're dealing with trouble with time management, impulsivity, planning, prioritizing, like sustaining effort toward any sort of goal, all of our working memory challenges, only now there's new demands and less support. So we're having to do a lot of stuff we've maybe never done before. And we're expected to be an adult now and do it by ourselves. For me, like personally, that actually started with applying to colleges. My working memory is really bad. So something is like, quote unquote simple as following directions for how to fill out an application. That alone was overwhelming for me. And then knowing all the choices that were out there and like there's the SATs and the ACTs and scholarships and how am I going to pay for it? I ended up just not even being able to handle it. So I didn't apply to any colleges. And because I knew that I wasn't going to apply to any colleges, I just kind of gave up on my senior year and was like, well, it doesn't matter. I'll go to a community college. My grades don't matter anymore, which was, not great for my habits that I had built up in terms of any sort of studying or homework getting done.
Just because of how hard it was to apply?
Yeah, just that alone. I remember, through high school, we visited a college campus. We went to USC and I loved it. And they had a great journalism program. And I was like, I'll go there. Like, I would love to. And I come home and I tell my dad and he was like, no, we can't afford that. And that was the end of the conversation. And my family had their own struggles going on. And I think that's true for a lot of families with ADHD kids is, my brother has ADHD and autism as well. And they had their hands full so much with him that for me, it was like, well, you're smart. You'll be fine. You'll figure it out. And I couldn't. So I didn't get the help I needed, but I was also too smart to really feel like I needed help or like I should be able to ask for it because I didn't really understand my ADHD at the time. So I was just like, well, I just am not good at this. Like I'm overwhelmed. I'm not going to do it. So I did end up going to community college and I found, I was like a go-getter and proactive and like I did find a way that I could get into, USC and I had to follow this program and be on the dean's honor roll and everything. And I got onto that, but like completely derailed because I had no structure. I had no scaffolding anymore. I had way too much freedom really fast. I could do whatever I wanted. I took whatever classes I wanted. And after a while, I started to get discouraged because I realized I'd been at community college 2 years and not really made any progress toward actually making it to USC. And it was discouraging. And there were times where just my ability to do things in the order that I needed to do them in was so compromised that I ended up taking a whole statistics course that was really intense over summer one time. And I forgot to sign up for the class in time. And I missed the deadline. So the teacher said, well, it's okay. You can still take the class. Whatever grade you get, just register for the class next semester and I'll give you that grade. And so I said, okay. And I poured my heart and all my effort into this class and I aced this statistics class and I completely forgot to register for the class. So you're putting all of this effort into school that doesn't always pay off.
Right.
And there's also everything else on top of it. You're maybe having to do laundry for the first time. Like, my mom understood I had a lot of challenges, so she did a lot for me. And I kind of wish she hadn't, because if I had failed a little bit more in high school and kind of had more structure and support and figuring out how to get back on my feet, then I wouldn't have fallen so completely off a cliff in college. I had no idea how to take care of an apartment. I had no idea how to cook myself dinner. I didn't know how to do laundry. And so I'm dealing with all of these new challenges for me at the same time that I'm dealing with suddenly having to completely manage my schedule and having no sort of structure or guidance or anybody telling me this is what to do. You're responsible for yourself now.
Right.
And on top of that, like, you're dealing with all these treatment ups and downs. So if you forgot to take your meds, like, you know, your mom's not going to drive them to school for you. If you forget to make an appointment for your psychiatrist, you're not getting your meds until you can get another appointment. Or for some students, they're actually going through treatment changes in college. So a lot of the times we're dealing with new med trials or comorbidities. We're dealing with anxiety or depression on top of it. We're dealing with learning disabilities. There are all these battles that these students are facing, you know, that teachers and professors might not be considering when they're looking at their ADHD students.
Right.
And a lot of times that doesn't get taken seriously. And I think that might be the biggest challenge of college, is that there's so much stigma and misunderstanding around ADHD. And it varies a lot from, you know, even from school to school and even from professor to professor, whether or not you're going to get the support you need and whether or not you're going to be believed when you ask for that support.
So what are the kinds of suggestions that you have?
There are a lot of things you can do. I would say one of the things that's important to do is keep as much of the scaffolding as possible, or focus on building it back in. So if you can go to school, like, stay at home and go to a local school at first. Like, going to the community college, I think, was a good idea for me, but I should have stayed at home. I was excited and wanted to move out. I should have stayed at home, because then I would have had a little bit more accountability and structure and not just been completely on my own. And then I had no idea how hard it would be to manage my schedule, but I think chunking out blocks of time is really helpful for that. So there's not the, like, you should be at school studying at this time, but it's kind of expected. So I think building that into your schedule would be helpful. So one of the things that did work for me for that statistics class, I built in homework immediately after that class, because the next day I was not going to care. I was going to have forgotten about it. It would not get done. But immediately after the class, I was already in that headspace. And so I didn't have to worry about transitioning from, like, playing my favorite video game to doing homework. I could just do it as soon as I was done with class. Yeah. If you can take a lighter course load, if possible, that can help a lot, just with that level of overwhelm. And you can feel like, well, I shouldn't, I'm smart, I should be able to do this. But the truth is, like, there is a developmental delay with ADHD. So all of your executive function systems are a little bit behind your peers. So just because the next, quote unquote, smart person can handle 12, 15 units doesn't mean that you have to, and doesn't mean that you're organizationally and mentally ready for that. And on top of that, if you do stress yourself out, if you do put too much on yourself, you're going to be dealing with emotional dysregulation on top of it because of your ADHD. So you're talking meltdowns more often. You're talking like being impulsive and, screaming at your best friend and then having to spend a day cleaning that mess up. Right. I just don't think it's worth it for like the extra, whatever half semester that you'd have to stay in school taking a lighter course load. It's definitely a good idea if you can. It's important to check out what accommodations are available at your college too. And ask for accommodations even if you don't feel like you need them, because I did not feel like I should need them. And it was because I was taking medication and I could focus in class and I did well when I showed up. But I didn't realize I needed other accommodations. I needed somebody to check in with. I needed maybe somebody to take notes so that when I got distracted in the middle of class and started wandering off somewhere else, I would still have that information to study from. I needed organizational help, but I didn't know. I didn't know any better. But we do know now. We do know a lot more about ADHD now and what supports are available, and definitely take advantage of those. And the reason I say look into the school is because the girl that's working for our channel, she's going to a school where they're not really accommodating in terms of accommodations. So she can get them, but she has to fight for them, and they make it really hard. She has to jump through a lot of hoops to get the accommodations that she needs. And then a lot of the professors aren't understanding of why she needs them, or even the fact that they're not supposed to disclose. So they'll call her out in front of other students on accident, and she'll have to be like, you're not, legally you're not supposed to tell people what my diagnosis is or that I have accommodations or whatever. And it's been kind of a nightmare of hurdles for her at her particular school. So I think that varies a lot from school to school, like how good the accommodations, and the disability department is going to be.
This is a good time for me to mention Landmark College, where she wouldn't have had to worry about that. They specialize in helping people who learn differently, and they are the people who were lucky enough to have sponsored this conversation.
Yeah. I in researching this episode, I realized how important to have a college that gets it, because even if a college is legally required to provide accommodations, it doesn't mean that the accommodations are necessarily going to be provided in a way that's as helpful as possible. So like she gets a private room for testing, which is great. But she went to book the room one time and went to go take the test, and they had put her in a room with glass walls right next to a hallway, which you can imagine how distracting that would be.
Yeah, totally. So did you yourself ever get through college?
I didn't, no. So this is why I'm like, even if you've got a smart kid, even if you are a smart kid, like, take advantage of the accommodations. I went to a guidance counselor to try and get some guidance at one point, and this is what I heard. Oh, you're smart. You're doing well in your classes. We're not worried about you. And they should have been. They should have looked at the classes I was taking. I was taking like fencing and ballet and opera at one point. Like it made no sense. I was just taking random courses that I thought were fun. And it was fun. I'm glad I got to do that. I'm glad I got to take courses that I liked, but I also should have been taking like English. Like I should have been taking courses that were going to count toward a degree of some sort instead of just like, oh, this is just like fun playtime. I'll do whatever I want. Because even though it was enjoyable to get that freedom and to take classes I liked, I started to get discouraged at my lack of progress over the long term.
Right. And so many people with ADD, this is such a common story. I think that one of the keys is just find a coach, someone to really guide you through and make sure you have the structures and know the ropes and the rules so you don't miss out on what college can give you. It's certainly not for everyone, though. That's
true. I wish that I had a coach, because again, I had no direction. My family was busy. Like, the guidance counselors weren't there to hold my hand. So having somebody who was there for me, invested in me, and like checking in on my progress would have been really helpful. I think that support groups can be really helpful as well. If there's a club on campus that you can connect with other students, some sort of study group, or even better, if there's an ADHD support group on your campus, or start one, because then you can get accountability and you can have somebody to talk to about the things that are pretty unique to ADHD students on campus. Like, oh my God, somebody came up to me yesterday and asked if they could buy my meds. What do I do? Like, I'm broke, like I'm tempted to sell them. Like, you need to have somebody to talk to about that. One of the guys that helps us out with the channel went to college, and it took him 7 years to get through college, and he ran out of his parents' money and ended up having to come home and finish it at a community college because he felt so much pressure to sell his meds. And again, like that developmental delay, he wasn't emotionally mature enough to be able to handle that kind of peer pressure. And he was also working at like Blockbuster at the time. So he's like, that's, I'm a broke, starving student. That sounds like I just don't want to be tempted. So he went off his meds. Yeah.
Any other tips or thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, so this was given to me by the girl that works with me, and she said, just give all the info a professor might need to every professor. Make sure you communicate with them. So if you end up falling behind, like, go up to them, tell them what's happening, keep them in the loop, and a lot of times they'll work with you. But I would say probably the most important thing is don't let other people's doubts about whether or not you're struggling make you doubt whether or not you're struggling. It's so common with ADHD students. Like, well, nobody else believes me. Apparently everybody else is also dealing with anxiety. Like, never mind the fact that their idea of anxiety is like more like stress. Your idea of anxiety is like you're curled up in a ball on the floor for 2 hours. If you're struggling, and that's valid. And it doesn't matter if somebody doesn't understand that. It's an opportunity to educate them if possible. And if not, at least stand firm in you knowing this is what I'm dealing with and this is what I need.
Exactly. Great way of putting it. Well, as always, you're terrific, Jessica. And be sure to check out Jessica's website, howtoadhd.com. It's a fantastic website. Thank you so much, Jessica McCabe, for joining me.
Thank you, Dr. Hallowell. It's always fun.
You know, at Landmark College, learning doesn't stop in the classroom. Their 360-degree support system allows students to learn independence in a controlled environment, as well as develop skills and learning techniques that help students succeed on their own. Try their free comparison tool for colleges with learning disability support at lcdistraction.org. All right, that's it for today. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our audio engineer is the wonderful Pat Keogh. Our editor is the very talented Chris Latham. And our producer is the inimitable Sarah Gurton.